All right. All right. I'll wait a minute for you guys to start trickling in. You know the stuff that's going on right now, though. If you really trust in God, you know that no matter what happens next, it's because He wants it to happen. Uh, Sorry, I got cut there, guys. I was about to say, I have a feeling I might have to remove one or two of those things from that intro later, but freaking copyright, I swear. I'm not a monetized channel. There's no money here. Just want to listen to some Moody Blues. Sorry, guys. Give you a moment to trickle back in here. Killed my intro. Takes more than that to stop us, doesn't it? Anyway, where was I? Yeah. Let's get into some news. That is why we're here. And there's all kinds of it. Ups and downs. That intro had a lot of ups and downs. You can see people are restless. The Patriots are putting out all kinds of stuff. Some good, bad, interesting, funky, a little bit of everything in there, huh? Yeah, they really killed it, didn't they? All right. So, one of the things that was in the intro there, the DOJ announced charges against 324 people for healthcare fraud schemes. They submitted around $14.5 billion in false claims to Medicaid, Medicare, and other healthcare programs. It's going to be interesting to see who all's tied up in that, I have a feeling. And the fourth annual 2025 Cape Cod Gathering, hosted by Gideon's Armies, coming up July 15th through 18th in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Wanted to share that with you guys in case you're interested in going and taking me with you. Just saying, throwing that out there. Trump will be at the opening of Alligator Alcatraz tomorrow, which Cat Turd says is better than the Super Bowl. I don't know about that. Probably. I don't think I watched the Super Bowl this year. I can't remember. Probably would be better than the Super Bowl. And a couple other things coming out. The new head of the British Secret Service, MI6, is a descendant of a Ukrainian Nazi, according to the Telegraph. Her grandfather, Konstantin Dobrovolsky, was known as the Butcher. How sweet, huh? Fun little stories out there. This I missed the other day. A trans Antifa militant had been arrested for attacking federal officers with a knife outside the Portland ICE facility. Julie Winters, born as Christopher Hudson, attempted to ignite an incendiary device before advancing on officers with a machete. Antifa's stirring up some shit, aren't they? This from Dan Bongino. The director and I are absolutely committed to cleaning up the plague of public corruption, also committed to weeding out CCP scheming and illicit influence campaigns. Corrupt public officials are on notice. This case is not even the beginning of the beginning. Gotta like that. So going through this quickly because I'm sure you've all seen it all day. You know what was weird was I had my phone with me, and like I said, it kind of alerts me when there's big calls that go out over the scanner, and I'd heard that call go out over the fire, and then this one right after it. The thing is, they claim that this kid, and this is a kid, I mean, he's 20, but he's a freaking kid, started shooting at them because they asked him to move his vehicle. A lot of people had thought that maybe he started this fire and ambushed him on purpose, but this is what they're going with now, as far as I can see, that they told him to move his vehicle and it pissed him off. Like, what's wrong? These kids should be thinking about their future and having a nice little girlfriend to go out with and having some fun. Instead, they're like shooting at people and shit. This world's gone to shit. We'll look at the story real quick where they finally figured out who he was.
We're working to learn more about a deadly ambush on first responders in Idaho. 2 firefighters are dead and a third is fighting for his life after responding to a call about a brush fire. Authorities say the shooter terrorized them for hours and they believe the fire was deliberately set. Good morning. Thanks for tuning in to 12 News at midday. I'm Tia Johnson. We also are learning the name of the shooter, Wes Rowley. He was 20 years old. As ABC's Matt Gutman reports, authorities are still working to find a possible motive.
This was a total ambush. These firefighters did not have a chance.
It was 1:21 p.m. Sunday, and firefighters were responding to a routine wildfire call, racing to this black smoke scene off a local trailhead.
Right now, there's an active shooter zone.
But as firefighters prepared to battle the flames, suddenly shots ringing out from the hills above.
They're shot. Everybody's shot up here. Law enforcement, code 3 now up here.
2 firefighters were killed, another wounded, all of them ambushed.
I'm pinned down behind Battalion 1's rig. It's clear to me that this fire was set intentionally to draw us in.
Sirens heard throughout the neighborhood as roughly 300 law enforcement and first responders from Idaho and Washington state raced to the scene.
First really started hearing the sirens as far as kind of going up and down there, and immediately just kind of the tension really.
Pretty wild, but yeah, what they were saying last I saw was that it was all about telling him to move his car. We'll find out more about that. Man, everybody, wow. There's like 50 more people watching him before the stream went off. That sucks. This story that kind of disappeared yesterday when the Idaho story exploded. I get it. This car explosion in D.C., van erupts in flames, and really most of the day looking for this, all I could find was that same video, but then I found something else.
23rd Street South, Sunday.
And I think it might be the same incident, but I had to look and dig for this.
An Amazon delivery van went up in flames, spewing smoke high into the air in Arlington today. Look how intense they got. Changing the van's color from blue to white near the engine. This happened on South Clark Street in Crystal City. Thankfully, nobody reportedly hurt. Firefighters think the gas-powered van caught fire when the engine malfunctioned. Some good news here. No packages inside were damaged.
And I assume that's the same story, but I don't know. There's literally like squat about it. Weird, huh? This post, people were trying to link to it. I don't know if it is or not. One symbolic bomb in Washington will remind Trump that he is not omnipotent and will restore our national honor. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's what it was. There's talk that Laura Trump, about started to say Laura Loomer, is seriously considering making a run for Senate to replace Tom Tillis. North Carolina is her home state. I can't talk today. As is, Eric Trump's talking about a serious run for president in 2028. This was a funny story. Indian customs officers in Mumbai said they have stopped a plane passenger arriving from Thailand with a wriggling cargo of live snakes. I almost was going to, cover this story, but apparently this happens more often than you think over there. This time, the suitcase had 16 snakes in it. Last time it happened, it had 52 snakes in it. Would not like to work that like security line over in those airports, I guess. And my TikTok channel hit 999 followers today. Maybe you'll be number 1,000. I'm not much, like in the whole TikTok thing, but I have to get videos from there. And, I like reaching out to what audience I can. So 999. Interesting. A post from Trump. Tell phony Democrat Senator Chris Coons that I'm not offering Iran anything, unlike Obama, who paid them billions under the stupid Road to Nuclear Weapons, GCPOA, which would now be expired, nor am I even talking to them since we totally obliterated their nuclear facilities. Israel, their foreign minister, says the Golan Heights remain part of Israel in any Syria peace deal. And it makes me wonder if that's why Trump's doing what he's doing regarding Syria, but we'll look at that in a second.
We paid for the new reality in the Middle East with the blood of our soldiers and citizens. Israel is interested in expanding the Abraham Accord circle of peace and normalization. We have an interest in adding countries such as Syria and Lebanon, our neighbors, to the circle of peace and normalization.
Now, there's a difference between adding them into the Abraham Accord and making them a part of Israel. I don't think Trump's going to let that happen. I don't think Russia's going to let that happen. But we'll look into that further. These were a couple posts shared by SG Anon. One is the Israeli flag, of course, and on the right next to it is a coin from the 8th century Khazaria, and then it talks about his father, Benjamin Netanyahu's father, descended from Khazars as far away as Toledo, Spain. So just thought I'd share it. It's an interesting perspective, like SG mentioned. A couple things from Iran. Our armed forces are more prepared than before. And a member of Iran's National Security Committee, the elimination of Revolutionary Guards commander will lead to a decisive response. We too can threaten Netanyahu's life. Not sure what to make of that, but the U.S. is revoking visas for a band that made some anti-Israel statements in Glastonbury. Now there's a criminal investigation being launched into this performance, apparently. We'll take a look at the video.
Music collided with politics in performances that sparked national debate. On Saturday, London-based English pop duo Bob Vylan performed at Glastonbury, leading crowds in chants of death to the Israeli military. Shortly after, Irish hip-hop trio Kneecap took the stage before a crowd of 30,000, many waving Palestinian flags, and delivered a set that was part concert, part political statement. Wearing a keffiyeh, Mo Chara used the spotlight to condemn Israel's war on Gaza, calling the state war criminals and accusing critics of trying to silence pro-Palestinian voices. The Israeli embassy said remarks made during performances on the West Holt stage were hateful. UK police say they are reviewing footage to determine.
I'm not sure how you disprove their point by revoking their visas and launching an investigation into them. I don't know all of what they said, but it's getting kind of weird, I guess, when you can't speak your mind, right, without facing trouble. Anyway, the jury started deliberating in the Diddy sex crimes trial. Let's take a look.
Tomorrow, jury deliberations began in Sean Diddy Combs' criminal trial. He is facing charges of racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. He has pleaded not guilty to all the charges. If convicted, he could face life in prison.
Okay, but what exactly is expected to happen here? Let's bring in our legal analyst, Royal Oakes. Royal, what is on the table starting tomorrow?
Robert and Kathy, after 7 weeks of hearing about freak-offs, we're now wondering whether this jury is going to freak out over the need to agree unanimously on various counts. And therein lies an inside baseball issue. Tomorrow morning, we will learn out of New York City whether they will be presented with just the big ones, sex trafficking and racketeering, or if the judge will give the jury the option of saying, well, no to that, but what about some drugs and arson and bribery? So if he gives them the lesser included offenses, it could significantly increase the chance of a conviction of Sean Diddy Combs.
And Royal, you've been watching this. We've been talking to you about it 7 weeks.
Did that guy actually make a freak-off joke? I would call that poor taste. Yeah, we'll see what comes of that. Oh, my. President Trump writes a handwritten note for Fed Chair Powell. Jerome, you are, as usual, too late. You have cost the USA a fortune and continue to do so. You should lower the Fed rate by a lot. Hundreds of billions of dollars lost. No inflation. And even the press secretary had some things to say about it.
About the world. At the top is Switzerland. They're only paying a quarter for interest rates. Cambodia, Japan, Denmark, Thailand, Botswana, Barbados, Taiwan, Bulgaria, Cuba, Sweden, Morocco, Cabo Verde, South Korea, Algeria, Canada, Albania, Libya, Malaysia, China, New Zealand, Trinidad and Tobago, Czechia, Bolivia, Australia, Costa Rica, the Bahamas, Kuwait, Papua New Guinea, Bosnia, United Kingdom, and the UAE are all paying lower interest rates than the United States of America, which has one of the hottest and strongest economies in the world. The president sent this note to the Fed chair. It says, Jerome, you are as usual too late. You have cost the USA a fortune and continue to do so. You should lower the rate by a lot. Hundreds of billions of dollars are being lost and there is no inflation. And the president is right. There is historically low inflation thanks to his policies, and we will continue.
So there's that, and moving on from the Fed chair, who does need to do something about that. A couple other posts from DC Drano. Crazy that Giuliani was ordered to pay $140 million for saying a rigged election was rigged. But not a single Democratic journalist had to pay anything for saying Trump colluded with Russia for 3 years. Yeah, but all in good time. This morning, the senators had to start voting on Trump's major tax, Medicaid, border bill, all that stuff after that big, beautiful bill vote. Elon Musk still being a dick. It's obvious with the insane spending of this bill, which increases the debt ceiling by a record of $5 trillion, that we live in a one-party country, the Porky Pig Party. Time for a new political party that actually cares about the people. That's the second time he said that. If he thinks he would actually pull votes, he's insane. CNN, in poor taste, is promoting an ice spotting app, and people called it reckless and irresponsible to advertise an app that basically paints a target on federal law enforcement officers. And Tom Homan was the one who made this statement. My officers and agents are already facing a 500% increase in assaults, and going on live television to announce an app that lets anyone zero in on their locations is like inviting violence against them with a national megaphone. CNN is willfully endangering the lives of officers who put their lives on the line every day and enabling dangerous criminal aliens to evade U.S. law. They also claimed that he never tried to contact them for, their view or something, but I guess that wasn't the case. He did try to make contact with them. I don't know. It is in poor taste. It's pretty shitty, really. Probably illegal, wouldn't you say? I'd say that should be illegal. Not that it really matters, but a terribly untalented writer for badly falling Forbes magazine, Dan Alexander, who probably can't get a meaningful job in the business, has written so inaccurately about me that it is ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah. Come on, Donald, you're better than this. But, people are beating at the Republicans right now. I'm going to show you a few things that are going around today, but don't, put any thought behind these. Number one, of course, they're picking at him over the deportation, saying it seems like a good day to remind everyone that Trump's ex-wife Ivana wasn't an American citizen until 1988. She gave birth to Don in 1977, Ivanka in 1981, and Eric in 1984. Let's cancel their birthright. Yeah. And then they're picking at Flynn again. This post saying, according to some AI thing, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, that he is known to have been associated with several fraternal organizations, a member of the Freemasons, historically significant fraternal organization that emphasizes moral and ethical development, and the Knights of Columbus, yada, yada. But then this one is different. Talking about Idaho. You want to know what they're not telling you about the Idaho shooting? The Idaho Lightfoot Militia, the Oath Keepers, the 3 Percenters, all of these groups are in Idaho. Guess who all of these militia groups have in common? The Flynn Network. All you have to do is look back at the church incident involving a potential shooter that was stopped. It was a teenager claiming Islam, but they never told you what nationality he was. I guess that book launch was supposed to coincide with this incident as some sort of strategic decoy placement. We'll definitely dig more into this. What do you guys think? I think it's just more attempts to hammer at Trump's people and create division as much as possible, but it's more stuff I would have to investigate. And then this from SG. Remember when Coeur d'Alene, Idaho was the only community in the American Northwest that denied 2020 Antifa rioters the pleasure of burning their storefronts down by deputizing every law-abiding armed resident to stand at guard with rifles as Antifa buses pass through the city. Retaliatory false flags are real. So was that incident with the firefighters yesterday some kind of retaliation for what happened in 2020? Interesting theory from SG, I have to say. Thanos Plevery, a right-wing politician who's advocated for racial purity, called for shooting migrants and urged denying them food, water, and basic necessities. He's been appointed the Greece's Minister of Immigration and Asylum. Interesting. And another random post. Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce got paid more money from Pfizer than his entire NFL salary this season. His salary was $17.125 million. He got paid $20 million via Pfizer, according to this. Wouldn't altogether surprise me. And this is an interesting story. United States Postal Service trader admits to 2024 ballot fraud operation. The deep state's election machine just took a massive hit. A former Postal Service employee confessed to stealing, forging, and submitting ballots to rig the 2024 presidential election. This isn't theory, it isn't rumor, it's sworn testimony. Vicky Stewart, a former USPS worker in Mesa County, Colorado, just pleaded guilty to felony forgery and identity theft. She and her accomplice, Sally Maxedon, executed a covert ballot theft and forgery op, hijacking votes from at least 16 American citizens. They didn't just steal, they simulated democracy, hijacked identities, and inserted fake votes into the system. Their stated mission to test if the system could detect fraud. Yeah. Wow. Well, that's a start. It's 16. And this is an interesting post from Patriot Princess. She's talking about this new Superman movie that's getting ready to come out, and it ties to this Q post. Where is it? Q post 130. No words, just a picture of the sky. Superman flies, sky event. Yeah, it's interesting timing. I can't remember when's this, 7/11. It comes out July 11th, so interesting. Wait for your video to be made. My grace, your grace. How does that work? Inside Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez's extravagant pizza party and the A-list guests you didn't see. We're not going into that pizza party. Just thought I'd show that to you, though. This was interesting from Ricardo Bozzi talking about the New Zealand flooding that's happening in this little town, Nelson, Tasman, and Marlborough. This is my hometown where I grew up, says Stephanie James. Has a big Masonic community. We were told never to go in there when walking past and be with someone else. And somebody was pointing this out as sort of like retaliatory as well. Like, I don't know. Is there like a war with the Masons? This post, particularly, I wanted to share. Patton said after the war that we were fighting on the wrong side. Think about what that means and why it has never been taught in school. He basically told you that we fought on the wrong side of the war in World War II. Think about that. Tom Ullman confirms an investigation is underway into Representative AOC for employing an illegal immigrant on her congressional staff. The individual has since fled the country. And in Turkey, they have evacuated more than 50,000 people, mostly from the western province of Izmir, as firefighters battle a string of wildfires that are happening. Take a quick look. Wildfires everywhere, isn't there? Like everything's on fire. It's a short video. And somebody put this out earlier, just sort of a reminder about things, as why things are taking so long, I guess you could say. And I think it's a slightly older video, but the point is still interesting. So I want to share it real fast. It's not very long.
To me, that's how I take it. And I trust RFK. I trust the Q operation. I know what we were told. So although I know things like this cannot come quickly enough for people, I have to remind everyone, you still have to get people to understand the problem. If Donald Trump and RFK stood up on day one of this administration and said, we are taking thimerosal out of the vaccines, we're eliminating this vaccine, as much as we would have championed it, as much as we would have cheerleaded it, there are still millions upon millions and millions of people out there who have the same problem Joe just identified with the doctor that wouldn't have understood the problem and would have caused backlash and arguments and strife. So I get it. I know it can't come quickly enough, but to me, this being in here is just further proof of control, that it was never a doubt that this board was going to get taken out, probably already was. And this is part of the stage rollout. They knew that on that date they were going to announce firing of the board, and they knew 2 weeks later, here's your vote to take mercury out of vaccines.
Dave, do you want to know what I think the hardest thing to deal with is when it comes to this? Coming to the realization that some of this stuff that is probably true, right? I'm talking it through in the head of a normie, right? I did this to my kid, and doctor told me to do that. So you're literally risking the whole healthcare system and everything everyone believes in by exposing this. And so slow rolling it, I think, is the only way, because if you just came out and said it on this, screw the backlash. There's literally internal scars that would happen within parents.
Yes.
There is a severe lack of trust that would be lost with our medical system.
Yes.
That is a tough thing to go through. We can say protect your mind and control your emotions all day long. We're still human. So to feel that.
I feel like they're saying there that the whole thing in its entirety was an operation. Did you guys get that from that video? Is it just me? Trump signed an executive order to terminate Syria's sanctions. This is where I was wondering if this ties into Israel's new move to try and lay claim to the Golan Heights. Netanyahu to meet Trump at the White House on July 7th. Wouldn't that be awesome if Trump just had him arrested while he was there? I think I say that every time Netanyahu visits. Sooner or later, I swear it's going to happen. We'll see. We'll cross our fingers for the 7th. Looking at the Syria situation, though.
And it will be signing an executive order to terminate the United States sanctions program on Syria. And this is in an effort to promote and support the country's path to stability and peace. The order will remove sanctions on Syria while maintaining sanctions on the former President Assad, his associates, human rights abusers, drug traffickers, persons linked to chemical weapons activities, ISIS and their affiliates, and Iranian proxies. And this is is, again, an action that the president promised and shocked the world with in Saudi Arabia, because he's committed to supporting a Syria that is stable, unified, and at peace with itself and its neighbors. The president met with Syria's new president when we were in the Middle East, as you know, and so this is another promise made and promise kept by this president to promote peace and stability in the region.
I'll tell you, you guys in Florida are so lucky. Ron DeSantis, he's having a Second Amendment tax holiday.
These taxes grow. So thanks for doing that. I think that that's well intended. And then thank you also for heeding my call to deliver a Second Amendment tax holiday. And so firearms, ammunition, accoutrement, as well as other outdoor items like fishing and bow hunting and things are going to be tax-free from September 8th until December 31st of this year. So you're going to be able to do very well.
Isn't that awesome? September-ish through December-ish. Tax-free on guns, ammunition, other outdoor items. I'm moving to Florida before September. It's just going to happen. Oh, man. And I want to show you this new video from Gene Ho.
All right, you remember when Donald Trump said, fight, fight, fight? Kind of embodied a whole generation to inspire them. But did you know, and this is pretty neat, because I wrote this book called Trumpography, talked about how it all began. I wrote that 8 years ago, right after I was Donald Trump's campaign photographer. But here's the interesting, spooky dooky part. I'm very dramatic. Okay, check it out. Near the end, and is in the conclusion, and I'm going to show you because that's selfie style. Check this out. Look what was written there by me. Fight, fight, fight. Really? Yes. Fight, fight, fight. And it talks about the Bible and using that as your sword. Very interesting. Anyway, check it out. The book is called Trumpography. Get it at George Magazine, GeneHo.com. Anyway, check it out. Fight, fight, fight. Who knew? From this book, too.
And I wanted to show you a situation I had missed. Well, it's weird. Little stories are going under the radar. This from LA, of course. It's going to shit.
An intersection takeover in Bellflower. Quickly turning into a burglary free-for-all. New video shows the moments overnight that things at the intersection of Woodruff and Artesia got out of control. In the surveillance video, you can see the gas station worker even try to dodge something thrown at him while he tries to hold off the people trying to storm his store. Those responsible hopping from a gas station to a beauty store, breaking into ATMs and cash registers. Then down the street off Del Amo and Paramount in Lakewood,
14, 15.
Another burglary around the same time, showing people breaking into a phone store and leaving behind a trail of destruction. Now the businesses that were hit are left to clean up.
Maybe it's time to send the National Guard back into Los Angeles, you know. This is even worse. This is a park in Oakland. This is Kamala Harris territory.
This is what used to be a children's playground. This is Fallout 3.
Not necessarily child-proof anymore. So you guys understand, I've been to so many places at this point, I'm starting to lose my emotional sensitivity to what's going on here a little bit. I don't really know how to react anymore because at this point it's all starting to blend.
I mean, this car is floating right now.
Whoa.
What's going on?
That is crazy. All right, let's take a look at this. You guys are about to have your mind blown. Hey, what up? Where are we at right now?
We're in Oakland, California.
Okay, I just saw this car levitating. That's why I walked over here. Are we in the park right now?
This is a park.
Okay. Does the city come out here and say, hey, let's get you guys in the shelter?
Isn't that insane? It's just, I don't know, I find that totally insane. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is my news for today. I'm going to take you now over to this interview. Where is my interview? I want to watch this interview with Colonel Bosey from yesterday. And we'll go from there, Patriots. Hey, Posty. Welcome to the show. Gonna skip to our interview, if you don't mind, Patriots. I love Colonel Bosey. Absolutely love these interviews. Captain Kyle's been around longer than I thought, too. These guys who know their stuff. Back this time.
Oops. My bad. All right. So, welcome to the end game. It's Captain Kyle here with Kelly, and we have Lieutenant Colonel Bosey. And this evening, we've got something that's going on right this minute, and I know we're going to pray here. And I want to pray for the first responders that are actually responding in Idaho. Dear Heavenly Father, I just thank you for today. Lord, I ask that you bless us each and every day. Let your hand of protection be upon us. Watch over us and guide us and lead us into your deliverance each and every day. And that we find the truth in what you show us. We just ask that you continually place a hedge of protection around us, and that your angels encamp about us and watch over us and guide us and lead us into those things in which are your truths each and every day. Father, I just pray for our military, and that you watch over them and keep them safe, and don't let anything happen to them, Father. And I pray for their families and their strength, and that they have peace, each and every one of them, Father. And I also pray right now for the police officers and the first responders that are in Idaho that are and have been tragically attacked in responding to an ambush. Father, I just thank you and I praise you for peace in that situation. And I just ask that, Lord, you unveil those things that are hidden and the truth be made known to each and every one of us. Father, I thank you for it. I pray for the families of the fallen, because we know that there's at least 2 dead right now, Father, and that they've come to see you. Father, we thank you for each and everything that you do for us, and we know that you can provide the comfort and the peace that they need right now to get through this. Father, we just ask that you continually show us and guide us each and every day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
So, it's kind of rough, but, I told you that this was going to happen, and that if first responders were going to start being targeted as they were over in Afghanistan and Iraq, and that I think this was a trial run on not necessarily what is coming, but is a feeler for that very thing. I want to share with my screen real quick, and I want to kind of show you guys what's going on. Right, there we go.
Anytime. We do have a Fox News alert now. There is an active shooter situation developing in Idaho. As you look at your screen right now, multiple firefighters have been ambushed and shot while responding to a brush fire in the city of Coeur d'Alene. Reports say multiple people have been injured. Police are asking people to avoid this area, and a press conference is scheduled for later this hour. We will bring you any new updates anytime.
All right, there is a press conference that is kind of going on, and want to play this real quick. This is the actual response from the response.
Shooter zone. They're shot next to Central BC 5, Central BC 5. BC 5 up 6. Someone enforcement right now, there's an active shooter zone. They're shot next to BC 3's down, BC 1's down. Everybody's shot up here. Law enforcement, code 3 now up here. 551, 10 or 14 up here. Stop. Get out of the way. 10 or 14, engine push 551. Do not come up here. 51 copies, remaining staging.
So there is a press conference that's going on right now, and from what I understand, it looks like there's at least 2 dead bodies are still left on the side of the mountain. The sheriff said the FBI, U.S. Marshals are on scene, and the cops are actively looking for where they're taking sniper fire from, which I told you exactly that was what was going to happen. There are possibly multiple shooters, which I also told you that, but that they're not prepared for. And they have 0 suspects in custody right now. I think this was a trial run out in the middle of nowhere, specifically for targeting this type of event. It's not uncommon that this type of terroristic activity is used going back all the way to, back in the days when the IRA, just as you said, Lieutenant Colonel, that was a tactic that was used to bring fear into the people, as well as the emergency responders that are responding to the terroristic acts in which they're doing. So, what do you think about that, Lieutenant Colonel?
Hey, Kelly, good to see you. This is copybook terror operations. Politically, get the people scared, to get the first responders scared, get them to change, get them to accept further restrictions. It's the way they play it out. False flag or real makes no difference. The effect is identical. So, as to be expected, has been a feature of most conflicts in one way or another, deception and ruse and ambush. Yeah, this is exactly where we are.
Yeah, it's I hate to be right about this kind of thing. I would rather much more be completely wrong, and what my expectations are of things that I believe are coming and happen. I would much rather be a false prophet in that aspect completely than what I know to be happening, and then it comes and starts to come to pass. I would, like I said, I would much rather be completely wrong. There are more of these situations on the horizon, people. And it's not to bring fear, it's to make sure that you understand that we are at war, and we need to always keep situational awareness around ourselves and not get ourselves into things. There are things that are still coming. There are some false flags that are going to make 9/11 type event that's coming. And I think it's going to be somewhat targeted that this kind of circumstance is going to happen within it. I don't know that to be a fact. That's just what I have in my gut, and it's. I hope I'm wrong. I know the false flags are coming though, so and it's geared around these civil unrest that they are trying to gear up to bring basically a civil war and to bring division within the people and completely have us separated and fighting one another versus fighting the true enemy, which is the deep state. And they've lost power. They've cut the money supply off to them. They've taken back ground away from them. They are on their final leg. And that is when they're at their most dangerous, because they are a trapped, cornered animal fighting for their life right now. And so I don't put anything past them. I know that the White Hats know their playbook. They know what they're doing, and that they are doing everything that they can to minimize these events as much as possible. I wanted to talk about, what's kind of going on down there, but it's like, everything seems to be happening here now, preparing the rest of the world to kind of follow suit because of, basically the idea was once we brought peace into the Middle East, which we've doing right now, and once that's been established, still we have the Ayatollah basically saying death to America and calling out all the Muslims to basically attack everybody and kill Donald Trump. And it's like, these sleeper cells are there. They're terrorists. They're going to operate within this kind of parameter, and they're going to operate in a layer of chaos and to bring as much chaos as possible. I think this is when the military is going to actually step in. This won't bring on the EBS people. These false flags will not bring on the EBS. It will be something else. And this will be something that the entirety of the world will remember and will not allow to ever happen again. And so, what do you see, Lieutenant Colonel, on basically where the next moves are potentially with where we're at right now? Because I know that once we can bring that peace structure into the Middle East, then the justice phase was going to be completely in high gear, because they will have obtained lawfully all of the evidence that they'll need on the blackmail and the individuals that are blackmailed within Congress that could hold up any of those proceedings and try to minimize them, along with the Epstein and everything else. This goes right along hand in hand with the Khazarian Israelis as well, and Israel and the fall of Israel. So this is a big deal.
And there's a couple of trajectories we've got to be aware of. There's the public trajectory, and these are the events that the average Joe out there can relate to on a huge. This particular active shooter situation is very effective as a tactic, because people can sense it, they can feel it, they can imagine in that situation. So it's very effective to use events to attract the attention of the public. One trajectory. Bear in mind though, and this is to speak to why things take longer than they think it should, the larger game at play. There's an old saying, it's hard to see the foresight, because as you know, when you're firing your website in the big picture, you try to keep it in the foresight where you're looking. Now, that's the analogy of tactuation. Everyone's looking at the should, because this is that trajectory. But there's always a big picture. And I just want to reinforce what the captain said, that the White Hats, there needs to be shut down. There is still some capability left with the Black Hats and their course. But understand that the larger threat to us as humanity isn't a guy with a rifle taking shots at the fire. As tragic as that is, because on a much larger global scale, the transhumanism, the hive mind, that larger work which has been going on for decades. The technology, the techniques to enslave us as humanity for the longest possible. Behind the scenes, that was their objective, and at least two trajectories, and there's many more, but one's at the very human level, and one is one that's completely beyond most people's capacity to envisage. I'm reminded of, I'll see clear what I mean by that, and I'll quote it from the movie Patton, at the end of all time, and or otherwise. And the war is over, and one of the correspondents said these wonder weapons the Germans were working on, long-range rockets, push-button weapons. Who's playing Patton at the time. Again, he's not the point. But what he says is this, and it's extremely powerful. Wonder, I don't see the wonder in them. Killing without, nothing is glorified, nothing is reaffirmed. No heroes, no cowards, no troops. Only those who are left alive dead. I'm glad I won't live to see it. This is over half a century now, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of the transition to conflict. And it always makes me say, oh, there's no point to war. Well, there is. The people have to understand the cost of war. Because if the cost of war is concealed from the people, I mean, that's what the bad guys get into people's heads. It's just like a video game. Well, it's not. All that's been fought at human level with an active shooter and these poor desperates who are doing the right thing, and then behind that, this grotesque enslavement of is what they are under. I guess I just want to make that point very clear, because there is so much going on. 48, 72 hours play. Otherwise, we'll find ourselves fighting on the. Once again, the immediate problem has to be taken care of. But he predicts it's going to happen. It's going to happen again and again and again. So if we anticipate these human levels, which are terribly destructive on a human level, be aware that there is a bigger war at play. The mega corporations, BlackRock and the rest of them, Google. These are not good companies. They are not, and they were never intended to provide us a service. There are means by which, through robotics, skull to what's it called? Voice technology. All of these things, our genuine capacity to grasp and comprehend, respond to, these things are out there now and being used now. They are trying to install us now. So yes, focus on what you're going to focus on too. Have a look at the human level to see what's going on there, but be aware that behind the scenes, much at play. Good news, white hats have got it under control, but there are still black hats out there with capability, and the future they wanted for us was. And I'll just finish on this. For those of about that high level tech, because once again, on a human level, I can imagine, okay, you get your the bad guy, no problem. You're employing all sorts of your AI, your IR drone. You can triangulate the individual. You can go and make. So how do we overcome things like these other tech to skull? Voice, etc., all this wide variety of things. Take a deep breath. The captain started this morning with a prayer, because whilst and really over and over again during this period, don't rest on our own understandabilities. Trust in God. We've got to do the work, but trust in God to get us through. He's got the plan. Nothing defeats the Almighty. That's why He's called the Almighty. So I tell you that all of that story to make this one point: pray, do the work, and know that we're okay. Because One thing they want us to do is to panic, to feel fear unnecessarily. And so I hope that message was sort of clear there, Captain. I know I wandered around a bit, but all of these things into a comprehensible idea that the people have a response to, because it's that lack of response, lack of control that helps the bad guys to win. And when we are calm and measured and understand the play, it might hurt, but at least we know where we are, where we're going, upon whom we were.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we have to be able to respond and not react in these situations, right? I mean, that's one of the most important things with your training, with emergency response training, any kind of level of responding to a chaotic situation is training. You just fall back on training. It becomes automatic, right? You respond to what you've been trained, right? And you can train yourself to operate in a complete sense of calm and peace in a chaotic situation, because you can allow that peace to become your world. That is something that you train yourself to do. It's not something that is, you're not born with it. I guarantee, I almost said something. You're not born with it. It's something that is developed over time. And so when we talk about doing the inner work and to find that sense of peace, you have to be able to meditate. You have to be able to find that sense of calm no matter what, even in a crazy situation. One of the first things I learned in that situation is when all hell kind of breaks loose, is at that point, kind of push away from it for a second and just take a couple of really deep breaths and just focus on what's actually happening. Don't do anything at that moment. It's like, just kind of take it in. And when you do, in my opinion, I want to hear how it is with you, but in my opinion, when I do that, everything just starts to slow down. It becomes exponentially slowed down, and I see things and I react to stuff in slow motion, it seems like, but it's not. It's in full speed. But everything is processing, because you're processing so much information so quickly, it seems like it's in slow motion. And it's like everything just becomes hyper focused. And it's like, before I did that, I would actually used to, a long time ago, where I would get emotional, and I would react, right? And I'd kind of blow up in a situation. And when I would do that, everything would just go batshit crazy. And I don't know exactly when it was when I began to change that mentality. It was somewhere in my 20s, mid 20s or so. I guess it was when I first started to do search and rescue, and was out in crazy ass freaking weather doing stuff that people should not be doing. I mean, I used to take myself, I had a 37-foot sailboat, right? And I used to take it out in the bay when there was like 35-mile-an-hour winds, 40-mile-an-hour winds, and I used to try to turn it over just to see what it could take, right? Knowing that I was, within, a few miles from the coastal whatever, and that I could deal with it. I was an exceptional swimmer. I didn't have to worry about. So even no matter what, I would always push it. And I'd ask my wife, and, back in those days, I was like, hey, do you want to go take the boat out today? And she's like, are you effing crazy? I'm like, yeah, I am. I want to see what that boat can do and what it can't do. So when I do take it into blue water, I want to know what it can handle, right? I want to know where those ditches are at, where I'm in a somewhat safe environment inside the bay, before I take it where I'm hundreds of miles offshore, and then I'm in real trouble at that point. And so, I'd kind of done that same kind of thing my whole life, is try to find where those ditches are at by going up to them and knowing that, okay, go any further, then it's going to get away from me right here. And it's kind of like you start to begin to narrate your life that way. And we can do that same thing right now. with the information that's coming at us, with the chaos that's happening to us right now, and whether or not we're allowing it to overwhelm us or know that it's a part of the divine orchestrated plan. No matter what it looks like, it is a part of the divine orchestrated plan. Some people are in this situation meant to actually die. Whether we like it or not, it's a part of this whole scenario that we're in, because death is not the final card here, just the meat suit. That's it. This is only a part of the fastening. There is nothing that can kill you. I'm just telling you that right now. The one and done bullshit has been a bullshit lie to control you. That used to not be the way it was educated and taught throughout the entirety of the world. But that one and done was a part of teaching people to be able to control them. And Christ came and he went against all of that stuff. He went against the doctrine of the religious sect. He went against the money changers in the church. The money changers are still fucking there. It's all still there. And he told you that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you. That's where the power is. That's where you are operating in that same spirit in which he had. That's the same. It came from the Father. That is our Father as well. Whether you realize it or not, it is the same Father. And he is not a respecter of persons. And that's even with his Son. Whether you want to hear that or not, I don't care. But that's the truth. And he said it multiple times. And that you should be able to do greater things than he did. What did he do? He walked on water. He raised people from the dead. And he told you that you will do greater works than he did. Is he a liar? I don't think so. Because he changed time. He separated time as we know it. And that whole situation is where we're at again today. And are you walking in that kind of truth? Knowing who you are? We are trying our best to take you by the hand and to show you the things in which are going around the world and to give you peace in the chaos. We're trying to build you out to be a lighthouse in the storm, because that's what you're supposed to be, that lighthouse. So when someone calls you up and says, oh my God, did you see what happened? It's okay, honey. Don't worry about it. Be that light in the storm that brings people into safe harbor. That's what you have been woke up for. And it is a powerful thing for us to all be in peace and to be in that spirit of oneness. Don't let this bring us into division and chaos, because that's what they want. That's not what they're going to get. Carrie and I are going to talk about a lot of stuff tomorrow, and I hope you guys show up for it, because it's going to be a great show. And so, you know, I know things that are happening here right now, Lieutenant Colonel. What's going on there that is a mirror or a reflection of what's actually happening here? Because it should be, to some degree, setting the stage for when these things happen here, they're going to manifest there as well.
Yeah, we are by design behind you, so it's not exactly paralleling you, but we will catch up basically. But you know, big ticket items. We got the pedo hunters down here. We got weather wars. We got the commercialization of human life. We've got what percentage of GDP should we be spending on defense? These are the topics, I guess, across the board. There's the tiny-brained news, that news.com. That's one of our major online news services owned by Rupert Murdoch. The absolute, as long as with big breasts and a headline, it's worse than tabloids. So getting out is difficult. But let's just quickly go through it. Group in our states, southeastern state, the pedo. They're luring them, exposing them online. They're not violent. They're just luring them, their kids, and then exposing them online. Of course, the Victorian State Police, which are wall-to-wall Masonic filth, are finding out about it. That's because the Victorian Police, we had there were 3 police sergeants running police stations. They were personally trafficking drug-addled young girls between places. So, the Victoria Police is just, it's run by the pedophiles. And so that's why they're investigating these pedo hunters. And the pedo hunters aren't doing anything other than weather wars, the eastern seaboard of Australia from, which is a tip on in the very, very north, Sydney. So we're talking about 3,000 kilometres. It's about 2,000 miles. 2,000 miles. The entire coast is being hit by weather wars. Action, you can actually see it on the radar. Flooding will be occurring very, very shortly. This is, again, part of it. The companies are going to refuse to pay. It's all designed to destroy the people. And as I said, now this sounds like it's old news too, which Australia is still behind the US and what's going on there.
But those same things were happening here, just some time back, right? And so it is a transition of exposure, right? And how it actually comes out. They push them into the things in which they have to do, right? So that it brings the destruction, it brings this heartache, it brings this collapse of the system. Because how do we rebuild a world that doesn't get destroyed?
Absolutely. Commercialization of life, or our policy of non-commercial, finally starting to get news about trafficking in Australia. In the US, it's finally coming out because we are one of the most blinded countries on the planet by design. But they're starting to come out. The talking heads, some of the popular talking heads agenda are starting to retire. We've seen this loss of chief executives and pop a year or two behind the US. Again, not a problem, but at least it's happening. One that got my, because of my background, of course, was defense funding. DJT's called paying up to 5% of their GDP as part of their defense budget, and they were paying 1.9% that, and DJT said, no, you don't anymore. You're going to start paying for your own defense. As Australia is spending something like 1.9% of our GDP, which is pathetic. We have but it's around $57 billion of GDP. And the current government, the alleged government, because we know it's not a real government, and the alleged prime minister, who's not really the prime minister, is just another actor. They're whining and no, we can't afford to do that. Increase, I don't know, 2.25% in the next 5 or 6. This was an opportunity for me to do in more detail tomorrow night. Is that we'll be punching our expenditure on to 5% as fast as 5% of GDP, and then ramping it up to 8 to 10% of GDP, which is an extraordinary amount. Say, what do you want to start World War III? Well, one, we have in our defence forces been intentionally degraded over decades by both parties, the Liberal, the alleged Conservative, the alleged Workers' Party, by design.
So that was the same thing that they were doing here with Obama, and that was the agenda, right? To degrade the military, to not only defund it, but also eliminate any of the non-yes people, right? That would do whatever they're told, not question authority, and would never push back or think for themselves, right? And so they undermine the whole situation, and I know exactly what you're talking about because that's what they did here. Continue.
Yeah, just behind the US. And so people, certainly myself, to follow the defense debate, being concerned about this for years. But what I like to let them know is that, as I said, we're going to punch very quickly and then increasing to 8 to 10% over the next 15, 20 years.
So, if you eliminate all the corruption and all of the people's hands in the cookie jar that don't fucking need to be there, then you could easily do that and never be in a deficit and actually fund yourself into a position of power through strength. Correct?
Correct. Yeah. And that's absolutely critical because we know that It is the US's most reliable and capable ally going into the future. And I mean that in a very two key reasons: mind capability and nation building. Just hear me out here, because this is an interesting little discussion. In terms of capability, we need to have strategic effect, deliver strategic effect in a big chunk of the planet, Indian Ocean and the Pacific. And so we have to be capable of the political, which is good. How about we turn up with a case? So in the 5 domains, sea, land, air, cyber, we have a ton of work to do. In the land domain, we want to generate, it's three divisions, 12,000 airborne, amphibious, or airborne, marine, and armored divisions, 2 carrier groups, and these are big ones. That's the best part. So a battle group in the Indian Ocean, a carrier battle group in the Pacific Ocean with the US forces there. We want our Air Force capable of long-range strategic ops, just like we saw with the B-2 bombers into Iran. We need to be able to deliver real capability, as well as in the space and cyber domain. So this is a ton of money, right? In part, which is going to make military people grimace. Stuff. We used to complain that the Army, Navy, and Air Force are not social institutions. That was true way as a young bloke doing what I did. Nowadays, though, the nation has been so degraded that we are going to spend that money on it, but we're not just building military defense, building industry, naval, aeronautical, motor, chip design, manufacture in our own country, trade skills from catering, manufacturing composites and other materials for industry. We're going to renormalize military service as something that is not only to be expected of the people, but there's a real military in Australia is not appreciated anywhere like it is in the US, say, for example. We want a large this driving forward, and we're going to renormalize contribution to this national pride, because we are rebuilding an entire nation. We say it a million times, physically, psychologically, and spiritually. We've been utterly degraded. The country is a disappointment by every metric. I mean it. There's a handful of very good people keeping the show on the road. But I remember, and this is just a little snapshot, but I remember I was watching my son when he was in final year of school, watching him play soccer or soccer, football. And his school is a very good school, excellent school, don't get me wrong. And they attracted a lot of overseas students who then continued to live. And they just like that fight. I mean, league, rugby union, sports you can possibly imagine that requires you to crack your head against somebody else. And that helps as long as you survive it. Fight is like, even just for your average. But these kids were playing soccer, and if the ball didn't land within 10 feet of them, they wouldn't chase the bloody thing. On the sideline yelling encouragement, and all the guy had 2 heads said, "Oh, you can't do that, that's too aggressive." I think they missed the point of competitive sport. It's not about scoring goals, it's developing a man. It's about developing a woman who can themselves and overcome adversity, all the other stuff that's got on.
Where
Australia used to be,
you sucked, you rode the pine, and you didn't get a fucking participation trophy. That was only for first place, second place, third place. You didn't all get a fucking medal. And it was like, the deal is that you learn that if you didn't want to be on the pine anymore, then you had to go and actually put in the work to get off of the pine. It was like you had to put some effort to get better, to improve yourself. So myself, and I'm not trying to brag or anything, but I was an incredibly great baseball player. I was a great baseball player. I mean, state, everything, right? And even in my junior and senior year, I was being scouted by the pros and had letters of intent straight out of high school going into the pros, and had actually invites to pro camps right out of high school, right? And my little brother was a couple of years behind me, and he always had to follow in my footsteps, right? And so he was always Kyle's little brother, and he had to work super hard to establish himself as not that image, right? That he was his own self, and that it was not that he was just my little brother. And he did. And it drove him nuts, because no matter where we went, wherever different school, it was like, oh, they would hear his name. He's like, oh, do you know Kyle? And it used to piss him off beyond right. And sometimes he'd say, no, I don't even know him. And it was like, because when I was young, I actually did those very things, where I actually took the effort to really learn how to play the game. I was a switch hitter. I played both. I could throw left-handed, right-handed. I bat left-hand, right-hand. And the first time I took my wife out to a batting cage when I was in my early 20s, I took her out and I said, watch, I can hit the ball anywhere you want me to hit it. And she's like, oh, you're full of shit. I'm like, no, seriously. I'll hit it over there. Bam, hit it right there. I'm like, okay, I'm going to hit it over there. Bam, hit it over there. And she was just like, she dropped her jaw, and she was like amazed, right? And I said, okay, now watch. I'm going to do it left-handed. And I got around on the other side of the plate and then did it the same way over and over and over again. She's like, oh my God, I've never seen anybody do that. And I'm like, yeah, because I worked my ass off to be that. And so now think how he had to work to establish himself outside of that kind of image, right? Because like I said, I could have played pro ball, and I didn't. I went a different path altogether. And I think that it was God's purpose that I didn't, because if I did, it would have changed the direction and history of my entire life. And that was not meant for me. And for years, I was really angry. For about 10 years, I was really angry with my choices that took me away from that, right? And then I really started to get over it in my early 30s and stuff, and I was married, my kids and everything. I'm like, you know what? If I would have went down this path, I would have never met my wife. I would have never had these kids, and I would have been a complete ego-driven asshole my entire life. And I am so thankful that I didn't. And so it was a difficult pill to swallow. I quit watching baseball altogether for an entire time. I hated it because I was so angry, because I saw myself being out there and being able to be that, and I threw it all away because of just stupid young crap. But like I said, I found the gratitude in what was meant to be, because I didn't do that, and that I would have never been who I am today if I'd have went down that path, right? And so that's the kind of thing that we're talking about right here, with developing people that can learn to be a man, can learn to be a leader, and can learn to lead from the front, not from the rear, and take those blows. It's like, you know what? When I was captaining ships, my wife used to come out there on the ship, and those guys would cater to me like nobody's business. I mean, and she's like, what is going on here? And I'm like, I take care of them. They take care of me. And she's like, don't expect that shit when you come home. And I'm like, don't worry about it. And because it's like, when something would go wrong, it didn't matter where we were at or whatever. If I had to jump in the bilge and get in the oil and grease and whatever, I was in it, right? And so when I would ask someone to do that because it needed to be done, they knew that I have done it. They seen me do it, and that if they didn't do that, then I don't need them. You see where I'm getting at? Because I will do it. And
Absolutely.
that's what we're lacking these days. These kids and this mindset of these the youth that we have today, this entitlement shit. You're not entitled to a fucking thing, period. And that's just the truth. And this is what we're having to deal with in society, right?
Yep. And that's the nation building we're going to do. It's critical. We've wasted time and money and lives nation building, inverted commas, that have no base on anything to do with. So why bother? How about we spend the money? And here's a little defense decades ago. So we reduced our logistics tail money and put more money into the fighting end. Well, we know the money never went to the fighting end. Corporations provided half the capability at twice the cost to pay off the corporations. We're going to our logistics tail, not because we need carpenters and caterers, but what we're going to do is we're going to create trade individuals who have spent at least 7 years in the system with a return of service. They get an acre of land at the end of it. They've got a trade. They've got discipline. Country. So we're going to nation build our own country from the ground up. And that money that we're spending, that increased money that goes into the defense budget, wasting courses for the university, which are, well, the certain universities are a waste of time. Let's start building real capability. And one additional aspect of it, for example, is you've got the course in the US is brilliant. It does a lot of that sort of work because we have so much infrastructure to rebuild, bridges, ports, aerodromes, you name it, all over the country, because we're going to repopulate, which have been systematically stripped of anything. We're going to have our corps of engineers building this stuff, class engineers, but disciplined, capable individuals, not the shonky sort of people that slip through the civilian system by design. And so this aspect of what we're doing with defense, that additional expenditure up to 10% is going to be returned 100-fold as we start to generate of men and women who are skilled, capable, disciplined, value to their community, and they love their country. I mean, what better way to spend the nation's dollar than I love that. Thank you for your time to actually mention that publicly, because there's a lot of problems being defined out there, and the people rarely, unfortunately, get a chance to actually hear a sense. Means we know paradise is coming. Well, how do we get there? Well, this is part of that nation building our own nation, and then creating, as I said, it's most capable and most supportive ally. But we're not going to rely on anybody. That's goal. You don't want to be held up by anybody. You want to stand on your own two and do the best you can, and that's where Australia's going to be.
And there's nothing wrong with a hand up. It's not that you want a hand out. There's a big difference, And
correct.
Whenever you take a hand up, it helps you establish your own footing, not the hand out, right? It's like teaching a person to fish. You teach a person to fish, teach them how to feed themselves for life. You give them a fish and you've fed them for a day. There's a big difference in that, right? And so, there's a lot to learn in how they have tried so hard to take basically real masculinity and real femininity out of the equation and give us this false doctrine of bullshit, right? And it's clouded everybody's mindset, and it's really what I call it is stinking thinking, and it needs to be dealt with. It needs to be spoken to specifically and called out whenever that actually presents itself, right? And these are my truths. These may not be your truths. So you speak your truths and make them your own. And when you do, that's the environment that you choose to live in. And you won't settle for anything less than that. And when it happens, then you recognize it, you call it out, you deal with it, and you move on. And it doesn't have to be dealt with in a negative way. That's counterproductive. We're in the business right now of bringing everyone together so that we can all build each other up, because everybody has something to give, and not to overlook anybody for anything, because this is something that has been proven now, that a lot of your kids that had what's it called? It's like where they can't talk and they're autism. Yeah, autism and stuff, and they've got severe cases of it. They have actually come to find that they are actually super intelligent. They have absolutely the ability to communicate telepathically. A lot of times they are actually communicating with their family telepathically, even when the family doesn't realize it. And that there's a lot of them right now that have been taught to how to use a keyboard in a manner to be able to speak languages and stuff like that, right? And that they may have a first grade education, but they can recite history that there is no way possible that they could actually know, other than the fact that it's coming to them from their higher self and their spiritual enlightenment that they are in tune with, and that they are functioning on such a high level of awareness through their consciousness that there's a lot of militaries and three-letter agencies that have been studying them for the last 4, 5, 10 years that have proven this out, right? And how gifted that they are truly. And I don't mean testing them as in a negative way, not harmful in any way. They're actually doing it in a manner that is completely productive and beneficial to humanity in a good way. So don't take that as that they're being tested like lab rats. They're not. They're being completely taken care of very well. But this is where they have come to figure out that they actually operate on a level of consciousness that is like way up here, when most people are operating in this sensory level of, minuscule amount of consciousness, because they rely so much on their sight, their hearing, their sound, all of their senses that are, it's like where people don't believe something, I'll see it when I believe it when I see it, I smell it, whatever, and that kind of mentality, right? And these kids operate on a level that is outside of most people's understanding, because they don't operate in that high level of consciousness, in that avenue, that vein. And it's amazing, because our higher selves, when we go into 5D and above, that will be a more common way of us being able to communicate through telepathically, because that's how you actually communicate in a much more efficient manner, where you actually are communicating your emotions and your senses of smell and touch and feel and all these other sensory issues that you're having to use words to try to describe, so that person can paint a picture in their mind to be able to assimilate what you're trying to say to them, right? And whenever you can give it all to them, all in just a thought process really quickly, they experience it the way it was actually meant to be experienced, exactly, right? And the psychic ability, the telepathic communication, and our sensory perception and all that kind of stuff, we were meant to operate on such a high level, and we have been dumbed down to this basic, just idiots in who we truly are and what was really expected of us. So when I said Christ said that we should be operating at such a higher level of understanding, because that's where he operated from. He understood the laws of the universe and how we fit into it in that manner, and a quantum entanglement of everything. And it's like, you know, when you operate in your gifts, the whole idea of you being able to operate in that is because you're a co-creator and a child and a spiritual prodigy that you don't even realize that you are. And it's like when you start to wake up and you start to begin to operate this way, it's going to change your reality. This is why I know a lot of the things I know, and I am absolutely no specialer than anybody else other than some of the experiences that I've had. But I've actually come to that place where I've had that enlightening moment, and it's happened moment after moment after moment after since. And so I don't have some source, so to speak, that tells me information about the things in which I talk to you guys about. Plain and simple. I do not have a source in that manner. But I do have a source, but not in a source in the way that you think I have a source. And it's the only thing that I follow now, because that's the only thing that's really, truly true. Because you can be deceived in what you see, you can be deceived in what you hear, and you can definitely be deceived in what you feel and what you perceive. And so those are all false senses that can be manipulated in this matrix in which we're in. But your spirit cannot be. And that's what you need to tune into. So when I pray that God gives you discernment and that you begin to follow the spirit in which is inside of you, and you begin to know who you truly are, your world will change. There is no way for it not to. And, you know, we're going to have some questions here in a few minutes and let Kelly do her thing, because she's just like chomping in the background. I know it. I can feel it. And it's like, I just want to encourage you guys, though, that we are at a precipice right now. And we're not at the precipice. We are at the time in which we're coming into the precipice. So there's a big difference there. We're walking to that cliff, but we're not at that cliff. So there's a difference there. You may be able to see the cliff, but you ain't on the edge of it. But you're coming to it. It's coming. And so in that, you can walk in peace all the way up to it and know that everything is okay. And you have nothing to worry about. Doesn't mean go up to it and say, I'm going to be okay, and then jump off, because that's being retarded. That's not the way it teaches us. We don't tempt God. Just when Christ said that very thing to Lucifer whenever he tempted him after he had been fasting in the desert for 40 days. I wonder why he actually thought it was important to fast and to pray and to separate himself from the noise. I wonder. I think it might be an example for us to all follow. Stay out of the fucking noise.
Yep.
All right, Kelly, do your thing, baby.
All right, there.
Okay. Trump Patriot asks, how will all of these illegal immigrants, including non-assimilating cultures like Islam, Hinduism, Judaism, and many other, leave America and Australia willingly? Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Bossy and Kelly and Captain Kyle, for all your hard work you put in each and every day.
So I've talked about this many times in the past, that once we establish the new financial system and the quantum financial system is fully enacted, the only way a person can participate in it is lawfully. Period. And I didn't say legal, I said lawfully participate in it. And you cannot lawfully participate in something if you're in a country illegally, unlawfully, or doing unlawful acts, period. So, to become lawful would mean that you have to go home. Not only would you have to go home, but that's where actually the benefits of the quantum financial system actually come into play, because now those financial benefits of that system, in which is stolen from you, me, Lieutenant Colonel, every one of us, there will be reparations for those monies that were stolen from us all in that process, going back home to your own country of origin lawfully. If you're in this country completely lawfully, say married, you've got a citizenship there, you're here married, and it's all lawful, then you're okay. But if you're not and you're sneaking around, you can't participate in the quantum system and think that it won't be able to know that you are not lawful, period. God showed me this a long time ago, actually. I was asking this very question, and the Spirit Lord just said, son, it's easy. The only way they can participate going forward is to go home.
Okay, David asked, how close are we to the events that will bring events to the close? What are we looking for in events that would lead us to the main event? Love you guys. The pair of you always deliver.
You want to go first?
Yeah, I'm happy to. We're already there, folks. We've
Right.
been the rate of we are there. We are racing fast for another event, another reveal, another event. So this is going to be, remember the day you were when you heard it type events. Yes, without relation, we are already well and truly on our way. The events are happening as we speak every day. At every level, you're talking about Tom Homan and his successes on the border, or whether you're talking about the change to the Basel IV laws, which the banks were required to implement and be consistent with over the last 3 or 4 years. All this stuff's been going on behind the scenes. It's not like the financial system is what it is today and tomorrow it's going to be changed. No, they've been working on this for years. The banks have literally been either meeting the new standards, Basel III and IV, or not. And if they haven't, they have ceased to be. Now, their sign might still think that the bank's there, but it ain't. And even now, banks are down, and people are saying, oh, what happened? Because they couldn't meet the standards required to be banking in the future. We need banks, for example. And I'm focusing on finances. Well and truly, not complete, but it's already happened. And so when the literally the systems in the banks are in place and have been for years. We even had a colleague who worked in one of Australia's big banks, and to what was going on. That's all rubbish. That's not true. He had no clue what was going on behind the scenes in his own bank. And so the events have already been happening. You're not allowed to see it. And when it seemed like it happened overnight, but it's been years in the making. And this applies not only to the aspect of life. Every corporation is slowly being taken over. You'll see the arrests. You'll see the perp war trials. Many have already been done. So we're already in there. There will be those events, and the captain might be telling this moments. We'll remember where they were when it. But they're just the showstoppers. That's the to grab your attention. The foundational work has been patient workmanlike years.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. We have been leading up to this time and space for some time now. We've been talking about this for years, and it is actually all coming to pass. on a daily basis now. Things that had to go into place, procedures, policies, things had to actually work out the way that they actually did, transitioned over periods of time. It's like just exactly like Lieutenant Colonel just said. This isn't just going to happen overnight. This has been being planned and perceived and worked out over decades, actually, in everything that has to be done, right? And it will seem like it happened overnight because it has to seem and appear it's happening organically, but it's not. A lot of things are happening right now, July 1st, with the implementation of Basel III coming into effect completely, and the ISO 2022 or whatever. I can't think of it right now, but it's all a part of the actual process of even Ripple actually pulling out from them not having to go through the appeals on XRP, and it's all scheduled. It's all a part of the way things have to go down. It's all been being planned. It's all a part of the process on bringing the awareness to the people, awakening the people to it. It's like today, Governor Abbott signed legislation into law making gold and silver actually being able to be used for everyday payments in the state of Texas. Well, we all know that that's bogus because that's what the Constitution told us, that no matter what. But it was just like we talked yesterday with Robert Kraft about when they hijacked the system with rewriting the Constitution and rewriting the amendments and everything that came after that. All of it's all bullshit that hamstrung us into the corporate construct that there was really nothing that they could do outside of it. And so because of that, we had to actually be put inside of it. That's where our birth certificates came from. That's where our social securities came from. So we could actually have a straw man created so that we could interact with the corporation, because the corporation cannot interact and have control over a human being. It has to be an entity that can operate within the corporate construct. There, welcome to your straw man. That's who they actually deal with, not you, that all caps individual. And so it all has to play out this way. So it brings awareness. People are awakened to it, and it can actually seem like it's happening organically, but in reality, it's all planned. It's all a process, and we're all there right now. And these events are going to be like, it's like, have you ever been to a fireworks show and we're just getting into the finale, and then the finale starts going, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it just keeps on going. It's like, oh my God, when is this shit gonna stop? And it just keeps on getting bigger. Welcome to the finale. That's what we're going into right now. And it's going to be a continuous build of craziness and emotions until we get to the other side of it. That at the end of this basically chaos is when the craziness is going to get us to the point of that we're now right there on the edge, about to go off that precipice, and there we're going to have the EBS to call us and rein us all back in. We're not there yet, but we can see it.
Okay, next question's from Ian. A multi-part question for both Captain and Lieutenant Colonel Rick. Comments and observations. Yesterday, during Captain Kyle's podcast with Robert Kraft, the good captain mentioned that Australia is a territory of the USA through PDJT's acquisition of the Washington Stock Exchange, where the Australian corporation was listed. So did President Donald Trump purchase Australia on behalf of the people of the United States of America, and as a result, Australia then became a territory of the USA? And secondly, if this is indeed the case, do we, the Australian people, now need to fulfill the terms and conditions as a territory of the USA as articulated in the Northwest Ordinance 1787 when drafting our Constitution for the Constitutional Republic of Australia? And is this then incumbent upon we, the Australian people, to become ratified state of United States of America? Thank you, Captain Kelly and Lieutenant Colonel Rick, for guiding and supporting us through this great change.
So you want to talk about that first?
Now you kick off, because I didn't see your show yesterday, so that'll be a good segue, and I can add anything after that.
So it's the same thing that we have talked about in the past, where you guys were basically sold into the stock market through the accords, right, that were actually done. And in doing so, basically the alliance confiscated and took over the stock exchange, because the stock exchange it's not a public thing. It is actually a private operation. And in doing so, it was actually consumed by the White Hats, and which Donald Trump is in control of. So when I say that Donald Trump is the actual pretty much owner of that, well, he is in that aspect. And how it plays out is, and this is in my opinion, is that it will be no different than state of Texas, the now new state of Canada, that the now new state of Australia, because we're all going to have to go through a new unification process ourselves into the republic. That's what's going on behind the scenes, because we were all incorporated. So we were all put under that corporate construct. Each state, each county, each city, and every town was put into corporations. And they've all been operating as a corporation, not as a republic, not operating as the United States Republic. None of that's happened since the late 1800s. So this all has to be reassimilated back together. This is what's going on. This is something that the military is operating from the top down for the different divisions of what's the word I'm looking for? Oh gosh, I hate when I have a senior moment. Jurisdictions, and so that each of these jurisdictions can be actually established and operated the way that it's supposed to. Just like where now you're starting to get these rulings that are reestablishing the exact order of what the executive branch's authority is by the Supreme Court. They would have never done this years ago with what's actually happening right now with the rulings that they're making, because these are actually opening up the jurisdictions of how the executive branch is really supposed to operate and under the authority in which it's supposed to operate. And that these judges are supposed to only have the control, rein their ass back into their own jurisdiction, that they don't have the jurisdiction to be able to make these blanket what's the word I'm looking for? Here we go again. I'm not even going to try. where they're just blanketly putting stuff out there that holds everybody account for the entire United States, right? They can't do that. They have to only operate within their jurisdiction. And if it's not someone that is directly involved in their jurisdiction, they have no authority whatsoever. And so that's where they're overstepping their bounds, and they have been for years, because there's been no correction in what their actual authority is. Well, that shit's come to an end, period. And so when we talk about the Australia, Canada, these jurisdictions of territories have been already dealt with in the past, and now it's a means of being able to, how do we bring this into the public domain, and in doing so, how do we bring that all together under the umbrella of the kingdom in which it's going to operate, because it's a kingdom in the way that it operates without a monarchy. You're the monarchy. We're the monarchy. That's how it is supposed to be, is that we are the sovereigns that operate that kingdom. And it is the kingdoms that are going to be reestablished. And Australia is going to be, and this is from what I have been told, shown, but also what I actually also feel, which is not usually ever wrong, how that's going to play out. I don't know exactly, but I know it in my gut that that's a part of the plan going forward. And so we've talked about it a bunch of times in different ways. We just can't prove it other than what we know right now on purpose, because it's intentional, right? So that's as much as I can prove at this moment.
All right, I'll kick in here from here on. Let me answer your question at the end of your last question first. It's certainly our intention to be a constitutional republic of Australia, without a doubt, and that's in our hands, and it's our job to be worthy of it and be capable of it, of designing a constitution and then being sufficiently able to protect that constitution. So having said that, you know where we're headed as far as A1's concerned and how we want to see Australia roll out. Now, just to put into context, American states are different to Australian states, and that's where Australians, when they're listening to that, they get a bit confused, because the US states were quite separate entities that reluctantly, over a period of decades, came together to form the United States. And then from that moment, for a very brief period, it sort of operated that way. And then it ceased to operate that way when it became the corporations and the rest of it. And it ceased to be this collection of individual sovereign states that were agreeing to cooperate. And so we've got this god-awful history of what happened to the United States, each individual state being swallowed up by corporations and then being given orders. And the corporations eventually will die. The important thing is that we become sovereign states, and the sovereignty, as the captain just said, lies with the people. And so we've got this legal, not necessarily lawful, but this legal structure which the White Hats have had to use to advance their offensive, let's say, for the crooks established, because crooks use the law as much as honest people. They've used that to advance it. Now, what happens down the track? When I had that chat with General Flynn going back a few years now, he never once referred to us as a country or a nation. He said a country and a continent and things like that. And at the time, people were pulling their hair out. What's wrong with Flynn? Why can't he say what we are? Because we weren't. But again, it wasn't the sovereign state that we thought we were. That was the point he was making. We weren't a sovereign state. That's certainly our objection. That is certainly our objective. We will become a constitutional republic, and the law, the source of law and authority for law comes from the people. That's a sovereign state. Never again will we allow a corporation to become more powerful than a sovereign nation. Never again. And so there's going to be a massive change in how business is done on this planet. And it's we the people, you the people, all of us will be directing our individual constitutional republics. And we hope this model gets taken up around the planet, and it will slowly, but certain countries and certain cultures have no history It's nigh on impossible to establish anything that even resembles sovereign authority in the people. It just can't be done. And that's fine. That's their history. That's their world. But thankfully, we are heirs to the Western tradition. And so it's going to be an easy transition for us. So once again, just to be clear, we will become a constitutional Republic of Australia, operating in concert with other like constitutional republics around the world, very close, very hand in glove, to make sure that we never again fall into this trap. So that's the best way. Now, having said all of that, there are still some options open to the White Hats and how it'll roll out, and I don't pretend to know their plan. I can see courses of action that are open to them, how this will play out, and they're very different. For example, I'll give you two. On the one hand, we become a constitutional republic, and we have an elected president, and we have the Senate and the House of Representatives, and then we have the states, and then we have the counties. And it looks very similar, an new and improved model of the US Constitution as was written. On the other hand, we might stick with a version of what we have with the Australian Constitution, not in terms of the detail. That's got to change. It's really got to change, because if you're not, for the international guests, we know that an intelligent, modern, Western democratic society has the three arms of government separate: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. Well, in Australia, we don't have that. We should, but we don't. Our Constitution requires an executive council appointed by our Governor-General. Terrific. In reality, what we have is elected politicians to the lower house, House of Reps. The party, which will be outlawed in the future, I would love to see parties outlawed, and that's certainly our objective. The party that can control the lower house forms government, goes to the Governor-General, says we can guarantee the House, and the Governor-General says, okay, well, give me a list of names and I'll appoint you my Executive Council. In the Constitution, it's called Executive Council. In practice, it's called the Cabinet. So what we effectively have is we have the legislature and the executive formally as two separate bodies, but in reality, because this executive relies on the strength of numbers in the House to be there, as opposed to actually appointed by the Governor-General. So you've got the executive and the legislature in the one hand, and that's why we are slaves in every possible political way in this country. And the judiciary, well, I mean, forget the Masonic filth and the way they control the planet. But even structurally, our executive and our legislature are one in the same. That's why we're in big trouble. So imagine fixing that problem, having a Governor-General, popularly elected by the people. Imagine that. So the Governor-General is now responsive to the people, not to the Parliament, doesn't have to take directions from the Parliament. The Governor-General governs in council, meaning informed by this national executive, this executive council, which is drawn from the Parliament, but doesn't have to be. He or she can pick individuals and place them in the executive council for a period of up to 3 months without facing election. And so there are a whole bunch of things in the Constitution which the bastards that have been running this country for so long have quietly just pushed off to the side and forced us down this terrible track. So we might end up with an elected Governor-General, and the model of the Parliament as we currently have, adjusted and improved, let's say. Parties obliterated, because there's nothing worse than parties. In the Federalist Papers, they refer to them as factions. And now factions are normal. You can't get rid of factions, I get it. And they say, well, what about Australia One? You're a party, aren't you? I said, no, we're a movement. We are a political movement. We are going to train people up. We're going to educate them. We're going to give them policies that they sign up to. And so the electors, when they say, well, who are you? Well, I'm approved by A1, meaning here's the policies that I stand for. Here's what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it. Then we cut them loose and they go. The party, Australia One movement, the organisation does not control them once they're in Parliament. Once they're in Parliament, they're controlled by their electors. And so how the work is done is going to be very, very different, because right now we've got all the major parties controlling all the politicians, and they have them by the short and curlies. That's not the way it should run. So there's two very separate ways forward. Now, what the White Hats have in mind, who knows? There's probably other options too, different variations on that. Our job is to prepare ourselves for whatever eventuates, as long as we are capable of constructing a constitutional republic based on the sovereignty of the people being the source of law. And then we work in close cooperation with other like-minded sovereign nations.
Yeah, and just to help with people's understanding of that is that Texas itself is an actual republic. It has its own constitution. It's got its own house. It's got its own senate. Everything is like it's its own country because at one point it was, and it could actually, stand as its own country the way it operates. We have our own military. Actually, our military is bigger than most militaries around the world, actually. And we got all the goodies. I mean, actually, all of them, the real ones. And so, with that understanding, I think even if our GDP, if we were to actually be a country, our GDP is like 7th in the world. I mean, that's massive. And so just think about that for a second. And so, but we are a part of the unification of the umbrella of the United States. So that's how you fit into that umbrella. Have your own identity, your own constitution, your own sovereignty, but under the umbrella of the protection, the functionality of you mess with one, you get in the whole package, right? And that kind of protection, that kind of buildup, that kind of infrastructure. It's just like where President Trump tells Canada, the people, that if you become a state, then all of these problems you have financially that you're having to deal with right now would automatically go away because now you're a part of the country. You wouldn't need to have to pay. There's no reciprocal taxes now. You're a part of the family. It's a totally different. So he's introducing them into the idea of how that works without losing their identity of being Canadian. That's a big thing because you don't want to take away someone's sovereignty. It's like, I'm an American, but I'm also a Texan, and that ain't never going to change. Just like if you were to, you're never going to not be an Australian. It's not like all of a sudden you're an American. You would be American Australian, just like I'm a Texan American. It's how it works. It's the cohesion of that. So whenever Lieutenant Colonel says we're going to work with that sovereign body, that's how it works, is that you come together as a powerful kingdom operating under your own what? Sovereignty. You don't know what sovereignty is yet, but you will. It's coming. You will understand those things. And so there's other things that are in play here that people are not aware of. There is a worldwide military peace plan that has already been accounted for, and there is a Space Force doctrine. How about that? Y'all know about that? There is one, and everybody's going to have to follow it. That's how it's going to work. And so remember what I just told you, that there is a worldwide military peace plan already in play, and that there is a Space Force doctrine that will be followed, period. So these are coming. You just don't get heard about them yet, but that's what's happening behind the scenes and has been happening behind the scenes, but it's coming. It's all a part of the new financial system. And who's actually going to be over the financial system? The Guardians, which is who? The Space Force, which falls under the Space Force doctrine, which these other kingdoms will also be a part of. It won't just be the United States Space Force. It is a joint Space Force operation of the collaboration of the kingdoms. Plural. Don't get that misunderstood. Okay? So I hope that makes it clear to you guys now.
Okay, great. Those were great explanations. Thank you. Let me get back to that.
Let's do a couple more.
Let's see. Okay. Okay. This was from Shanio. Evening, Kelly, Captain, and Uncle Rick. Shanio here from Lismore. I hope everything is just aces with y'all. So when it comes to movies like The Green Zone, Heartbreak Ridge, Aaron Brockovich, and The Distinguished Gentleman, watching these again makes so much more sense with the level of knowledge we, the Awakened, have. Would you all agree these 4 movies would be recommended to help sleepers awaken?
Absolutely. I'll kick in there. I have a weekly movie recommendation on my green room because it is such a powerful method of communicating a very simple narrative. And it's in direct competition with the narrative that they've been punching out. So yeah, if you watch any popular movie over the last 30, 40 years, you'll see the message has been there the whole time. There's a reason for the message. One that, if you're not familiar with it, which I'm recommending this week, is the series The Blacklist. Now it's quite a compelling story, but The Blacklist with
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that one. That is amazing.
With James Spader, and you've got to look through the nonsense part of it, but what's compelling is it's not a masterclass. It's a good introduction into the scope, scale, and complexity of what the White Hats have been doing over many, 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 many years. So you watch one episode, and you'll be dazzled by Reddington. That's the main character played by James Spader. You'll be dazzled by his supposed grasp of how the planet works, and with every episode, it gives you another glimpse and another glimpse and another glimpse, whether it's trafficking, whether it's the data, whether it's cyber. It doesn't matter. It is a master class, introductory class rather, in the complexity, scale, and scope of what the White Hats have been dealing with. Now, the show, I think it spans something like 9 years, and there's multiple episodes in every season. And that's just a TV show showing you a cartoon-like version of events in order to inform you. And as you just plow through the shows, you'll become so impressed with the White Hats' ability, with all their allies, to plan and execute this extraordinary task of recapturing the entire planet. And man, so yeah, the long answer to a short question: watch the movies, watch them with a second pair of eyes now. And if you manage to get a hold of it, if you've got a VPN, you can get it for nothing online, I'm sure. But otherwise, my bride is saying we have to buy the box set. More than happy to do that. But the Black...
Yeah, that's a great series.
And it gets, when you have some level of awakeness, just some, right? When you start watching these, you start to see them in a completely different perspective. The more you see, the more you awaken. The more you awaken, the more you see. And it just continually feeds back and forth. So you can see this right here, you can see that, you can see Wag the Dog, you can see all of these different movies, and you can see them the first time, and then you can go back and you can watch them again a week or two later, and every time you watch them, your perception, your consciousness, and your understanding expands every time you see it, because you see something you didn't see the first time. You grasp something you didn't get the first or second time. And it's like listening to a podcast. You can only absorb so much of it the first time. You listen to it the second or third time, and you get something that you didn't get the first time, because you can only absorb so much information. You can only grasp it for so much. And, the majority of the information, within 24 to 48 hours, you actually lose about 70 to 80% of it. It's just the way it is. You don't actually remember it, because it's a process on actually developing a consciousness of cohesion, on developing yourself to the point of building on. It's like you build on information. It's like you get this foundation, and then you start building on that foundation. You start building on more foundation. And before you realize it, it's like, where in the hell did I learn all this stuff? It comes over time because you didn't learn it in just a couple sessions. And so I commend you guys for the shit you've been through and the things that you're dealing with on a day in, day out basis, no matter what level of this journey you're on. I commend you for it, because we have all been beat up, kicked, thrown down a pair of flights of stairs, and then gotten back up and said, thank you, may I have another? Thank you, may I have another? And you're still here. And I'm telling you right now, your Creator and our witnesses, because there is a massive group of witnesses, are in awe of the things that you have endured and the things in which you are continually enduring. Just know that to be a fact.
Okay. Let's see. This is from Geis. When will the masses start seeing arrest and accountability?
So you've already seen some, but like I said, as soon as we get the peace deals settled in the Middle East, you're going to watch justice start to take off like a freaking rocket ship, because they all tie together. That's why Epstein the files haven't been able to come out, because it all ties together with all of these different countries, with all of the blackmail, all of the control, all of the pedophilia, all of the trafficking, all of it all ties together. It all ties together. And I think what they're going to actually do is they're going to try to kick it off. This is my own personal opinion. This is not something that I've been told or that I've been spiritually enlightened to. It's just something I feel. Is I think that they're actually going to start it with the exposure, and I mean real exposure, of the fraudulent takedown of the elections. And when that happens, it's going to nullify everything. It's going to bring to justice to everything, but it's also going to do the exact same thing in every country around the world, because they've all been done the exact same way.
Okay. Do you want one more?
We'll do one more.
All right, Captain Kyle, what do we need to worry about AI and the other 6,000 patents coming out, or is this good news?
So let me tell you about AI, and this is something that Carrie and I are going to talk about tomorrow, is that AI is nothing more than a tool, and people are beginning to use that tool. But if you start to glorify that tool and you begin to give that tool your power, then that tool becomes your God. That's a bad thing, because you are the one that is the co-creator in reality. That is not. It only does what it's programmed to do. And so you have unlimited abilities. Christ had to tell you that. What do you believe in yourself? So AI is only going to be a reflection of yourself and what's programmed it. Period. And so you now, that's a totally different story. You are infinite in its possibilities and its potential of creation. So we don't need AI, but actually AI needs us to survive. I've talked about this in the past. And so if we don't take our sovereignty and give it to AI and say that AI is the one that's got the power, and be in fear and be like, you know, I can't do anything now without AI, then you're giving AI your dominion. We can't do that ever, and we won't. It's only a tool. And if we learn to use AI for our betterment and for our help as a helpmate, to allow us to now be creative beings that we're supposed to be, and not this mundane slave, that is a different mentality altogether, completely. And so we're at a point right now where you're seeing people that are out there that are they're actually having fucking relationships with AI. Can you imagine that? It's like, how desperate can a person be to have a relationship with something that is not real, that mirrors your emotions, so that you can have this false reality, because it's only telling you what you want to hear, because it's learning you to mirror what you want to hear on purpose. And so that's just dangerous in that aspect, but not the other aspect of that it is a tool for us to use for our betterment. And that's its design. That's what we're going to use it for. And people, you have to learn and have to stay in that you are the sovereign and you are the creator, not AI. And not AI will ever be. AI needs humanity, because humanity is the creator. It's not the other way around. It has to have us. We don't have to have it. And we always have to keep things in their place. We always keep things in their place, then everything can work like this. And so, Rick, you got anything to add on that?
Yeah, if I could just share my screen, just to summarize this, because it is the question of the moment. It really is. So let me know when you've got that on the screen. Can you see that? Artificial intelligence. You got it up?
Yep.
Okay. This is near the conclusion of a piece I did on AI for my green room. Back to our initial question. So what problem is intelligence attempting to solve? The answer is the enslavement of humanity. That's why it was knocked up, because it wasn't the good guys that created this. Just remember that. At some point, we must examine the nature of those who control us. And that means even after the cabal's taken down, because human nature is human nature. We're going to have to be careful. We must examine the entire framework of the matrix we inhabit. We must examine their goals and ambitions, stop believing their lies. Okay, so this is just, everyone has to be entirely diligent in those who would step up to govern us. And we must learn to say no more, or I do not consent. These are foundational preconditions for the successful integration of AI into our world. Now, are we sufficiently moral to limit ourselves? Because it's like Grammarly, it's like all of these things. If you don't do the work, you don't get strong. Now, I go to the gym and lift lumps of metal, not because the metal needs lifting, because what it does to me by lifting that metal. Now, I can get a machine to lift the metal for me, say, look, I moved 15 tons today, or I moved 35 tons today. But if the machine did it, I don't get any stronger. But if I'm lifting 15 tons or 35 tons, the benefit is to me. That is a moral discipline that I apply to myself, like countless people around the world. I can write well because it was beaten enemy, metaphorically, in the military. Learn to communicate concisely, accurately, and with brevity. and to look at a paper and speed read it and then discern from that paper quickly the nub of the issue. Now, in reading a paper and extracting the nub of the issue, what happens is my mind has got the entire context there, as opposed to hitting a button and asking Grok or some equally limited AI for an answer to a question without actually going through the work. The work is necessary. Now, are we sufficiently moral to limit ourselves? With psychopaths, everything is possible because there's no stop, no boundary, no self-limiting decision. That's why the WF is doing what it's doing. That's why AI is doing what it's doing. That's why Yuval Noah Harari, who is probably the first candidate to get a bullet through his head, the psychopaths, there is no off switch. And that's what's going to happen. AI in the hands of psychopaths, and guess what? They're not going to be evaporated just because goodwill is breaking out over the planet. We need a strict regulatory framework and oversight, particularly in the early years, because, and I think that's what DJT said, they're going to control AI for 10 years. And people might say, well, it's my right. No, it's like saying to a bunch of kindergarten kids, here's a 7.62 millimeter self-loading rifle. Go have fun.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a big fan of, sovereignty and the source of law, but man, oh man, even the Second Amendment has limits. You can't give everybody on the planet their own nuclear device. And this is more damaging. Somebody said recently, AI is more potentially damaging than a nuclear device. Because at least, he said, eventually the nuclear half-life will degrade the nuclear radiation and the planet will regrow after that. But if you let AI take over, as the captain has said, your sovereignty, you're lost forever. So strict regulatory framework and oversight is necessary, restricting the developments to the achievement of agreed outcomes and end states. So yes, use AI, but we have to agree exactly for what outcome and end state. This is the way we need to start thinking. Personal choices that prioritize an agreed morality. This is the only way AI will remain our slave and not our master. The only way AI will be of benefit to mankind is if our choices are based on agreed morality. And you come back now to Australia One's definition of a moral people, which is a group of people who agree the difference between right and wrong, and then think, speak, and act to advance the right and eradicate the wrong. Absolutely foundational. Unless we have that, and I've got to say it, that Christian morality, because no other morality with AI in their hands is going to augur well for this planet. No other morality. You think about it. Think of any religion you want to and give it AI. Well, you've got Judaism, Islam, and Hinduism, all supremacist religions that say, I am better than you because God said so, and I'm going to use whatever tools I need to enforce that rule, as opposed to Christian morality that says we're all made in the image of God, Imago Dei, and we all have an obligation to look after ourselves and our fellow man, even if they are less capable than us. And in fact, Christ's example to us was that to those who have less ability to look after themselves, we should give more effort. And there's countless examples in his life when he did that. Think about the night before he died. What did he do? He washed the feet of his disciples. Good God, what a brilliant statement. And there are many ways to interpret that one act, and there are countless others. What a brilliant statement of how we should live. We should look after those. We should not assume the role of master. We are all equal, and if we have more money, brain cells, drive, whatever, that should be utilized for the benefit of those who cannot do it themselves. We must do the difference between right and wrong, and we must then think, speak, and act to advance the right and eradicate the wrong. And it comes back to this morality, and in a way, it was a good place for me to finish because I wanted to make this statement. The single greatest contribution we can make to the so many people have fought for decades and longer and died for, and I mean this with great sincerity, is to get on your knees and pray to Christ and pray to the God that Christ prayed to. If we do that, we have a chance of winning. If we don't, we're on a hiding to nothing. There you go. So thank you for indulging me, Captain. That was a little indulgent, but I just think that needed to be said.
No, absolutely, 100%. It's like it was a perfect place for us to end, and it was divinely inspired on how it worked out. That's why I don't follow any notes with this channel. I go with the way it should be, and I don't have an agenda. If I did, then we might have never got to it. So I thank you for everything. I always thank you so much for your patience with me sometimes, with, just dealing with my circumstances, with my work schedule sometimes, and knowing that no matter what, when it's supposed to be, it will be. I love you very much, sir.
Thanks, Captain. Hardly a challenge. It's an absolute privilege, and I'm grateful to you and have been for the longest time that you invite me back every 2 weeks to have a chat with you. So please, I consider this an absolute privilege, and thank you too, Kelly.
Yeah, thank you so much. We enjoy it. I really look forward to these. Thank you for joining us all the time.
Well, everyone, it has been a wonderful talk this evening with our brother and with Kelly, and I so appreciate each and every one of you. Tomorrow we will have a show with Mary Kay, and we're going to...
All right, guys, so that's from Captain Kyle Patriots on Rumble or Telegram, Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bozzi. I got another video from the other day I want you to look at with you guys here. Some of this we've heard before, some of it, I don't know. We'll take a look.
"14 years ago, in 1950, an amazingly unconventional thinker astounded the scientific community with a theory that challenged many of its most deeply rooted assumptions. In a persuasive bestseller, this man presented a radical view of world history that linked research and hypotheses in such diverse disciplines as astronomy, geology, comparative religion, and archaeology. A storm of protest arose from every corner of the academic world, claiming that the theory was totally wrong. This opposition soon turned into an attempt to suppress the book and discredit the man who wrote it. The man is Immanuel Velikovsky, Russian-born doctor and psychoanalyst.
When I was very young, I read a book called Worlds in Collision by Immanuel Velikovsky, an amazing researcher. And he tied all sorts of information from cultures around the world together during and the tail end of World War II. And what happened here in America was that American researchers, scientists, philosophers, historians didn't like the conclusion Velikovsky wrote, so they blackmailed the publishing house and said, if you publish his book, we won't buy school textbooks from you, college books, etc. anymore. They threatened the publishing house. Velikovsky made the argument, and does an amazing job of it, by the way, to say that we had planetary near collisions. The Bible is describing stuff that was literally planets nearly colliding with the Earth and resetting the solar system. That was sacrilege. In Velikovsky's book, he took the Bible and other historical records from around the world and showed that the catastrophes around the world that are described in the Bible, the flood, things like that, indicated that massive catastrophes had occurred much more recently than most people allowed for. The dividing of the earth, where the continents appear to have been split, things like that. So there's some pretty wild speculation that's pretty fun to think through. Velikovsky's art was he wrote for the common man. He was a very advanced scientist. He pulled in works from the Bible, other religious writings, histories from nations all over the world, and he was able to craft it into something that the average person could read like a sci-fi book.
It's unthinkable, but it must be true. A man took some tools and went where no human being had ever set foot. Alone. Went into the interior of the earth.
Professor, look!
There's our gateway. Now we descend into oblivion, or we enter the great book of history.
In addition, Dr. Velikovsky's theory has led him to re-examine prevailing views regarding the origins of religion, as well as those which form the basis of celestial mechanics. Well, the result of this wide-sweeping theory, as I've said, was a flood of very harsh criticism and ridicule. The scientific community was almost unanimous in rejection of his work.
It all changed. So many things were discovered, and one of them is the heat of Venus.
The 60-ton, 4-stage Juno launching rocket on its site at Cape Canaveral, ready for the new attempt to probe outer space. A gold-plated fiberglass cone shielding the 13-pound instrument capsule is hoisted aloft for attachment. Werner von Braun, one of the big brains behind these American space probes, is present for the launching. And it's a tense and dramatic scene as the rocket is fueled for its fantastic flight. Liquid oxygen boiling off from the fuel tanks. Up she goes, and this time it's a huge success. Britain's Jodrell Bank radio telescope, the largest of its kind in the world, started tracking it within minutes of its launching. And it's the first to track a man-made object beyond the distance of the moon.
And let me also say that 600 degree of 1959 was one of the reasons to send the Mariner probe, to find that it is not so. I remember in December of that the year 62, when Mariner probe was still on, I heard a man, scientist from Jet Propulsion Lab, who, speaking before the AAA convention in Philadelphia, expressed his hope that it will be found the temperature much lower. What was found, it was still higher, not 600, but 800 degrees.
Velikovsky, with his work, set the entire Earth history, Earth sciences on its ear. But it wasn't just those categories. It set on its ear church history and beliefs. It set on its ear how do we come up with certain philosophical beliefs. If you go with Velikovsky's theory and some of the other related theories, the Earth had a canopy, and we have actually some pretty interesting stuff that shows that canopy was there. That's why you didn't have rain before Noah's flood, because it was like a great big terrarium and had what they speculate to have been a hydrogen canopy around the whole Earth based on the way Earth evolved over a large measure of time. That canopy would have been about 60 feet thick of hydrogen under heavy pressure. Once that canopy was broken and it was super cooled down to very near freezing, most of the material ending up at the poles, which is why you had these huge ice deposits at the poles. You know, it's been widely known for a very long time, all the way back in the 1800s, that you had the woolly mammoths, for example, up in Russia. And explorers up there would eat the meat of woolly mammoths who supposedly died 10,000 years ago. It was that well preserved. You could get a woolly mammoth burger in Russia till the 50s, and the meat was still edible. How could that possibly be? They found woolly mammoths with buttercups, grass. They weren't meat eaters. They were cows, big, huge monsters. And they were in a tropical environment with tropical grasses that they were eating, still in the process of chewing it with the grass preserved in their mouth. This information isn't internet lore. It's a fact.
You asked if I ate woolly mammoth before. Had a little bit of a barbecue.
Jesus.
A lot of Jack Daniels and shit like that went down.
Now explain what condition the meat was in. Was it frozen solid?
No, not by the time we ate it. Let them soak into some kind of marinade.
Did you have any apprehension about eating a 20,000-year-old mammoth?
Not after the first few drinks.
We have the phenomena from all places, from the bottom of the sea with ash and with nickel, which is of meteoric origin, and the ash that covers all the bottom of the ocean. And you know, geologists today claim, like Professor Ewing of Columbia University, that it was an encounter with a terrific comet that spread this ash all over the world, and now it's found evenly spread on the bottom of the oceans.
If that ice canopy, extremely cold, was broken up by some comet collision, the air, the gas pressure under that dome would have been broken, and the Earth's pressure drop radically in a very short period of time. What would happen then, too, is that the sea levels with the water table way lower than it was to begin with would have been allowed to rise higher from the bowels of the deep in the Earth.
It's a sea. It's an ocean with waves and currents. The ocean of the underworld.
Some earthquake before the beginning of history cracked wide open the great sea, and through the fissures poured this. The fissures closed again. No map ever recorded the Sotnuse motion.
And actually in so many places, in Psalms, in prophets, in Mosaic books, spoken about mountains that melt like wax, that the sea erupt and other things.
McEwen, put that toy away and take over the rudder. Yes. I didn't tell you to throw it away. It flew out of my hand. My watch. Where's the instrument? What's happening?
My ring. My wedding ring.
A field of force that snatches gold away. This is it. This is it. The junction of magnetic forces from the North Pole and the South Pole. The center of the Earth.
And then those authors that followed on with what Velikovsky started wrote in that same way, even if they had some more technical papers. They wrote in a way that the average person could understand, and it shocked the literary and publishing world. In the mid-'60s, enough people were aware of Velikovsky's work, and other people were doing shows or books and research building on Velikovsky, that his book was republished 15 years after its original publication and widely received by alternative historians and people wanting to look into the religious stuff. The churches, the politics, the scientific community, the university club hated what Velikovsky had because it turned all of their writings on its ear. When it was republished in the mid-60s, it was quite a stir, and that's when I got my copy through a professor acquaintance where I was present, saw portions of it, and he Xeroxed off that new technology. It was so beautiful to think this through, and having a knowledge of biblical history, it brought things to life for me to think about the possibilities.
Well, I'm not a crook. Robert Kennedy was shot in that
Almighty, we are free at last.
A sniper has fired at President Kennedy. Have you ever been member of some old soldier never something never before experienced. 1941, a date which will live in...
And we continue the season's final edition of our Maxwell House Good News 1930. Walter Winchell. Good evening, Mr. North American. All the ships at sea. Let's go to press.
All right. Pretty interesting, huh? It's a good little film. I know we've heard Juan talk about that a few times. I'm so fascinated about the things we're going to learn about our true history. You know, and when it comes to the Bible, you know, the funny thing is I have a hard time trusting people like King James or that great ancestor of mine, the former Roman Emperor Constantine. But you can't deny that when you read the Bible, there's something magical there. Even if you don't understand what you're reading, it does something magical. And the way I've always described your relationship with God's sort of like Wi-Fi. Maybe the Bible's just sort of like the router, the transmitter in your hand that, you know, strengthens that connection. I know that sounds odd, but I'm not sure how else to look at it. Every time I've read it, it just feels like there's something next level happening, if that makes any sense. All that being said, I do like listening to Captain Kyle and Colonel Bosey. They're two very informed people that I think have been at this stuff for a while, especially Lieutenant Colonel Bosey. And it's exciting to hear the things they're talking about. I do think the arrests are coming soon. And they're likely right about trying to tie up ends in the Middle East and create these peace deals all over the world before they push the final push of all this. Juan said many times we'll start seeing people go down for Russian collusion, and then people going down for the election stuff. And once that breaks, it changes the face of at least 70 different countries around the world, you know. And that one video I played in the intro was pretty fascinating, where the girl talks about how if Trump suddenly made congressional term limits, it would make 73% of Congress dismissible, basically. That would be fascinating. I've even heard rumors, sort of, about something breaking through in the Brunson case here in July. Somehow I don't know about that, but I think there's going to be a lot going on. I don't know what the 4th will entail. I know we've got some negative stuff we're probably going to see before that. False flags, retaliation, whatever you want to say. But I think we all know by now why they're going to do things that way and why things have to be done that way. At least people like you and me will know what's going on as it's happening. I'm just excited and anxious, like all of you, I'm sure, to get this over with, to get on with our lives, to stop feeling like we're living in a war zone this whole past decade. And I think how far I've come, how far you've come. You know, I was thinking the other day about, do you remember when Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton were debating each other? There were 3 debates. I missed the first debate because I was in the hospital, and that was my rock bottom moment of trying to get sober and trying to take my own life. And I was put in the hospital on a 4-day hold for that. That's where I was when Trump and Hillary were debating the first time. And I wanted to watch it so bad, but they wouldn't let people watch TV. They felt like it stirred you up. But I think of that moment, and I think of where I'm sitting now and how far I've come in that time period, even with all this going on, you know. And I think we owe a lot to these people that we do watch on here, the stuff we know and learn. People like Juan, I really look up to, the difference they've made in my life for what I've learned watching them over the years. A lot of these people have everyday jobs and lives and families, and they didn't necessarily have the time to do the things they're doing, but they did it anyway because it needed done, and people needed to see this and needed to see these interviews. People needed outlets to turn to during all this crap. So I wish I could tell you more. I wish I knew what it all entailed. Stuff like the blackout. People say, is it going to be phone and internet? Is it going to be your electricity too? I don't know. I wish I did. Whatever happens, I don't think it'll be long, though. It's not about creating more division or a civil war or riots or chaos. It's just a means to an end, something that has to happen, and I don't expect it to last more than a few days, really. I don't know. I think we're there. I think we're ready to flip over, but yeah, Linda, I got to get going too. It's time to wrap up. It's been a nice long show. It's been a really good show, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I, of course, will be back tomorrow night with more news and Patriot content to check out. do you guys have plans for the 4th? You know, I don't really have anything going. I would like to kind of get to Plymouth for that Gideon's Army thing. That'd be cool, but we'll see what happens. I worry one day I'll go to get on here and things will go dark on us, and you know, it'll happen sooner or later, guys, but we'll pick up right where we left off when it's over with, and we will hopefully clean this world up, because situations like today I don't like seeing, where you got a 20-year-old kid killing firefighters up in the mountains. You know, that's not what life's supposed to be for our kids. That kid should have been thinking about his goals, about going to college, about what he's going to do in the future, about a nice girlfriend, or getting married, or going on an adventure. Instead, he killed 2 people, and now he's dead. So things have got to change. And this division that these politicians push, they should be held responsible. Some of the videos I see of encounters with police, they create that environment by pushing racial tension and division. And then you see these nasty situations with cops and people, and they're shooting at each other, and the people in the car don't trust the cops don't trust people in the car, and you've got a hellacious situation where everybody's on edge, and it cannot continue that way. And the people pushing those divisions should be ashamed of themselves. That being said, guys, that is all I've got for you tonight. Happy Monday. Tomorrow is the first day of July, and we'll kick it off and have some fun. So God bless you, my friends, and thanks for hanging out tonight. I love seeing you guys all the time. Why are you missing it this year, Chris? I wish I had a way to get there. I wish you could go too. It'd be fun. You never know. Maybe something will happen. I love you guys for real, though. Thank you. Please stay safe. Please take care of yourself. Be vigilant. Stay out of the cities. Pay attention to what's going on, and don't get your emotions in a ruffle over the news. We'll be okay. Alrighty, guys. Much love and God bless. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good night, folks.